Good evening. You're listening live to the Extreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob, broadcasting to you as always from the Pinos Palace, just west of Orlando, Florida. I am in the Extreme Studios. I have the young 20-something Professor Pixel joining me tonight as we're going to be discussing a new television show, season one of Hannibal, the Hannibal Lecter serial killer foodie show that was really popular, created by Bryan Fuller, that's done some interesting things. And boy, he really Pixel kind of gave this couple episodes up, and I don't mean that in a negative way, but that's certainly a theme that I noticed upon rewatching. I wanted to ask you, as people start getting in the chat here with us, what, if any, experience do you have either reading the Hannibal Lecter novels, Red Dragon, all those kinds of things, or watching the movies or the TV movie from Michael Mann, which recently I had reviewed with RDV here on the Extreme Movie Show?
Nothing.
Brand new for you.
Brand new for me, yes.
Okay, so this first episode, this is when primetime television decided to start going into, instead of 20-something plus episodes per season, it's more like, 12, 13, 14, whatever episodes that we're going to be doing here. It's an aperitif, which is like an appetizer. They decided to get all French on it. My initial thought watching this episode, because I haven't seen it in a very long time, is one, I forgot how beautiful it looks, how much it's shot. There's very deliberately slow pace to which might turn some people off, but I forgot how much I really love Mads Mikkelsen in it, and I think there's some good cast to it. However, this movie's got I'm saying movie already. This show really, to me, is interesting in that it's less about the serial killer and the murder and the more of developing relationships, which I think is going to be the key theme to it. What's your initial take on this episode when you watched it?
I was very intrigued. My oldest brother, he loved Hannibal. He binged it all pretty much after the series had finished up, and he was obsessed. But I had always meant to get around to it. Just you know that thing of having time and never having a reason. Well, now we have a reason, and that's what I enjoy. With this episode, it's a solid start. I'm trying to remember other television shows that I watched around that time, and I can definitely tell in a way that it's a product of its time. And I don't mean that in like the way most people do. There's just something in how it looks.
It's a very beautifully shot, but very grim feeling, and also, handsome in its own kind of way with the colors. Because you're definitely right with some of the digital effects here, with some of the washing out in the dream sequences that we're going to be talking about here shortly. I will throw this out to you because you mentioned at the time coming out here in the mid 2000s, 2013, 14, whenever it was. At this time, Manhunter came out in 85, 86 by Michael Mann, and books had already been written, and a couple more I think were getting written. So then you had the big explosion in the 90s of sexy serial killers, and 150-pound vampires, and really no fear. The fear had been taken away out of all of it, I guess, because of the goofiness of the 80s slasher movies, what they ended up turning into, right? So one of the last movies of all of these here just kind of flopped. And so I think people are at that point where we're going, well, do we really want to be watching serial killers when we can watch superheroes instead? Because obviously by this time that was starting to take over, I think, movies and television to some extent. So to me, this was definitely different at the time when it came out.
Yeah, no, I definitely get that. It almost feels in some of the scenes, though, and I'm not saying that I disagree that it's like beautifully or anything, but there are certain scenes that give the feeling of when you step too deep into a hospital and you have those lights above, and it just feels, I'm trying to think about the best way to describe it, almost too clean.
Yeah, sanitized.
Some of these scenes feel sanitized. But let's go ahead and start talking about this episode, where we get to meet Jack Crawford. He's our main character going in. See him inside of a house where there's two dead people there, and he's looking over it, and you get this weird yellow wind wiper effect
Yes.
the world goes black. And slowly he imagines the scene as it unfolded. Killer came in, shot one, and then this other woman went ahead and tried to use the home security system, and the killer shoots her too. And Jack is quickly able to. He asked for like the records of the report from the house security agency, and they said it was a false alarm, meaning that the killer was able to somehow pass through. Oh, this is a false alarm. Thank you. Moving on. So that's how he figures out the place was tapped. And he's been giving a lecture at Quantico, another show we will probably never talk about.
No, we have not.
It
not
is
cool enough, probably.
It is not good. But yeah, no, he's giving a lecture at Quantico, and I said Jack Crawford. I didn't mean Jack Crawford. I meant Will Graham. Jack Crawford is Laurence Fishburne, who walks in because he needs help with a case.
I'll say one of the interesting things about this opening gambit, as I like to call it, is the back and forth hypnotic effect with the sound that you hear. That's like an old metronome kind of visually, and it's signifies like counting backwards from 10 when you're trying to get into a certain sort of like REM state back in the old psychological sit on the couch kind of days, which I'm trying to paint that scene because that's obviously what we're going to get here as we do episode 1 and 2 here back to back. What I thought was interesting is you're introducing the character that we're going to be seeing the center of the episode of, and that's Will Graham. And a couple thoughts about the guy. He's not a bad looking guy, looks a little scruffy. He obviously is very awkward. He's obviously very competent and smart. He has these flashes of intuition that allows him to see things, and his brain takes on certain ways. Now, some people would say, oh, if you're left-handed or if you're an artist or something like that, or like a woman's brain physically is wired different than a man, so you might approach something differently. We find out that he's got a lot of empathy and that he can see things from the killer's perspective. I'm often reminded of the TV show from the early 90s that we're going to probably be reviewing at some point. That'd be the X-Files, how Chris Carter left to go do Millennium, which had Lance Henriksen there with kind of a similar ability. And I always thought that maybe that was inspired from the books. Because I will say Bryan Fogler, who adapted this for TV, he did some gender and race swapping in here, which doesn't really bother me because Laurence Fishburne's an ace. And I think the race swapping in here and the sex swapping are pertinent to the stories that we'll get into, because we get to see what he can do, and the fact that when he's lecturing there at Quantico, he's just kind of his own world. And my question for you is this dream sequence here that he had and all that, is it real, or is it like a dream? You don't really know. Okay, but you're going, wait a minute, when they give me the symbol, that's when we're going into the mind of him as a killer. But here's one of the things that really jumped off the screen to me. Laurence Fishburne's such an amazing actor. He's got great presence, Shakespearean trained, knows how to deliver his voice well. I think he doesn't like Jack, and I think all the stuff that I'm thinking and feeling about these characters, what I liked about this episode is the other characters kind of bring that up, because that's going to happen a little bit later. In my opinion, you've got this guy that's on the spectrum. They bring that up because he doesn't make eye contact. They describe the whole empathy thing. And I feel like Jack's basically bullying him. Jack needs something. He wants to go to this guy. He's not telling him to do it, but he's kind of making him do it. So I thought, wow, he's very assertive in here. And Laurence Fishburne's tremendous. I'm not saying he's evil and he's the bad guy, but this is just something that I noticed this episode, this show is making me do right now. And that's not analyze the specifics about a crime scene. It's more about feeling what is going on during each interaction. I think that's the strength of the episode to me. But to your point, when he gives the speech, he gives them the idea that over the past 6-8 months, whatever it's been, that these girls have been abducted from these little Minnesota junior colleges or whatever. And one was fairly recent, but what's going on? And so it's kind of interesting because instead of the crime being the thing of the show like it is in a lot of procedurals, it's not. It's the excuse for why we have people meeting, interacting. That was my take on this whole interaction. I think it's a very strong one too. It drew me right in really quickly. What do you think?
Yeah, no, I can see that. I don't know if I would really say that he doesn't like him. Ultimately, he does want to use him, though. That's the thing. He needs help and knows that this guy has, like, a fantastic mind behind him. So much so that he's pulling him in to investigate. They go ahead to a house of one of the girls that are abducted. Mm-hmm. And whenever they're going in and trying to talk about information, what's happened? She got taken, and she matches this profile that these 8 girls have pretty much been the same. And Will almost feels callous in his delivery when you're saying that, yeah, he's on the spectrum. Everything that he's saying, he doesn't fully explain his actions right away.
He doesn't have a high social intelligence.
No.
Or emotional necessarily.
But, like, immediately he wants to go see Elise's bedroom, and the father takes her up there, and takes him up there, and he goes to the door, and you can see the cat that's, like, pawing at the bottom of the door. And he had asked about it just a moment ago. Who feeds the cat? Oh, man, I haven't. And he uses that to deduce that she was kidnapped from within the house. Mm-hmm. And then with the cat pawing at it, opens the door. Who's laying in the bed but the daughter, Elise?
Yeah, and it looks like it's staged in such a way that as we go on, we'll see more of these types of things. So I like the fact that it's just not necessarily a messy body. It's staged there, right?
Yeah, no. And Will, once is working out, well, he just couldn't go ahead, and he couldn't do the same thing to this girl's body that he did to the others. What did he take? The liver or something like that? Oh, he went to remove the liver, and then he put it back in. That's the thing. He uses that to instantly figure out, okay, this guy's a cannibal.
But it's not campy. The show is not that.
It's not campy. It's great. Like these scenes that he's figuring things out, like, on the fly. It's almost Sherlockian in a way.
Yeah, I think in the scene here where they're investigating the room, we get introduced to another character. I forget her name, but I just call her the Asian-looking woman. She's obviously, she's serious and professional, but she obviously clearly likes him, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not saying she's sexually attracted to him, but she's interested in him. And I go, this character, as we're going to see him, he doesn't make eye contact. He's scruffy. He's smart. He's excellent. He's got a reputation for being one of the best in the FBI for what he does, even though he's not necessarily a field agent per se. And there's some talk about that later in this episode. But I'm starting to notice things. Well, Jack hates him, but the woman likes him. And here we have a young woman, college age, who's a long string of ones doing it. So I was thinking this might have just been like a one-off where they'd solve it at the end and we'd kind of get drawn into more of the characters. But the thing here that adds to the character a bit more is on his way home in the evening where he lives, he sees a stray dog on the side of the road, and they spend a minute or two of him just being by himself in the car trying to get the dog to come to him. And I don't know if it was meant to be here, if it was just bad editing, or if it means something later, but I noticed the dog had a leash on it and it was loose. And the only reason why I'm mentioning this to you, because as a proud owner myself of 2 German Shepherd dogs, non-working line, Czechoslovakian breeds, the red-haired long coats, they're very special animals, dogs. They've been bred over the years to have this empathetic wiring system in their brain more than the majority of other domesticated type animals out there. So that's why they rely on us to be leaders as opposed to, say, a cat. I've mentioned that before with certain things when we joke and all that. And so obviously he's a collector, because when he gets home in the evening, he cleans the dog, washes it, does all this too. And you found out he's got like 6, 7, 8 of them too. So it's kind of like symbolic. Here you have 7 to 8. I'm just going to use the term young, innocent women that are dead, except for this last one that they're investigating. And he's got like 7 or 8 dogs in there all laying with him too. So I don't know how intentional that is, but we get another dream sequence and all that before Crawford starts throwing a bitch fit at him in the men's room of all things, about basically saying, "Can I trust you, or do you trust my judgment?" sort of thing. And I go, "Wow, what a dick! Why are you in this guy's face?" So this is another reason that makes me think this guy's really smart, know what he's doing. He's just bullying over on Will.
I see what you're saying, but I also I see it as he's worried about Will, that he doesn't want him to spiral because reason that he was taken off the field before. But after that, we do get the autopsy scene where, like we said, they find out that the liver was taken out, and something's wrong with the meat, and the way he says it.
Because it's true. Animals won't eat spoiled meat.
Yeah, and she had liver cancer, so couldn't eat it. Couldn't do that to her. And then we get to meet a certain figure that's been waiting, and I was surprised about how long it actually took to meet the namesake of the show. We get to meet Hannibal Lecter.
Well, before you talk about him meeting Hannibal Lecter, what about the other lady that we meet briefly?
Will's friend, colleague, Alana Bloom, but they just call her Miss Bloom something. And I was actually like, I get that she's supposed to, we have this personal connection, but they don't really. Like, it's not that personal. They know of each other more than they know each other.
Right. I think she's interested in him as well. And here's Crawford saying to her, talking to him, she's like, "Look, basically, I'm not going to do a profile of him for you because it's professional, and I totally keep it that way." And he's like, "Look, I don't want to like put him out there if I can't trust him and all that." And they have like a brief discussion about it, because you can clearly see that he's thinking of him as just an asset, and he might be a flake, right? And then she's looking at it as he's kind of sensitive, and that's the whole thing. Is he sensitive? Is he not? What's going on? Because this guy is not a happy guy. He's not a guy that you're going to want to go out partying with. He's a guy that you go, he's not suicidal, but you're like, man, this dude's unhappy. He's just miserable. He's one of those types. He's a sad sack, let's be honest. So the fact that he's the central character, I do appreciate that they're having these other characters around, because it's really, again, the show's really more about the dynamic of it. But here, when they find that out and he goes to meet Hannibal, this obviously is the meat and potatoes of the story, is the relationship between these two. So I just wanted to point that out here, that I go, the women seem to like him, and Crawford, the only male figure that we've really seen that's been strong so far, wants to bully him. So that's just my take, but we'll see what happens the rest of the episode.
Yes. So after that, we do get Jack going to I forgot that Alana actually referred Hannibal to Jack to go ahead and not diagnose, but go ahead and give an overview of Will. But yeah, no, that's what Jack does. Goes to Lecter, and speak quickly about, I'd like to do this, please, and it brings him along for the next time that he goes with Will. After another body pops up.
Yeah.
Do you want to
I think the introduction of Hannibal here is done well, because he's not on the screen a lot, and Mads, plays it his way. But the transition from one particular ending scene to another is interesting to me, and that's why I say the show's a bit more artistic, because again, like you mentioned, when the people doing the dissection, including the Asian lady, they find out she's got liver cancer and all that, and they talk about some stuff. They go straight from the shot of like her liver to, it looks like a pomegranate and like some pork loin on there and some fig and a strawberry, with Hannibal just eating and bringing it up to him, and he's got this black and white, they call it a chiaroscuro in the art world, the shadowy kind of stuff in there too, especially like if you did that sort of artwork way back in the day, that's something that you'd be taught. And he's just sitting there eating. So you're like, okay, is this the guy? Is he the serial killer? Is it somebody else? What's going on here? I just thought that was a nice way, because it's kind of funny in a way, because if we know stuff about him before seeing the show, then it's funny. If we don't, then we don't know what's going on. But he clearly, with the patient that he has in there, who he offers him some Kleenex, he doesn't like the guy at all. But I love the way Mads just talks. Some people think it's a little like emotionless or just kind of direct. I wouldn't call it mumbling with his accent, but sometimes it was kind of hard to hear clearly. But the guy he's doing drops the Kleenex on the table next to him, and this is what I love about the way it's shot. You just get the headshot of Lecter just kind of like looking at it with his eyes and looking up at the guy like, you motherfucker. You know, he's like, that's why you feel as though we're on the verge of devouring you, because the screen's right on him, and that's what Hannibal is, right? And he says you have to convince yourself the lion's not in the room. He is such an intimidator by the way he's doing it without being a bully like Jack Crawford. So it's interesting to me, who's really more powerful, or are they equally powerful in their own way? Is Will going to become powerful? Because the real thing to this whole thing isn't necessarily, to me, the introduction of Hannibal and seeing him with a patient. It's the fact when the patient leaves, Crawford's there, and for some reason, I don't know why, he mistakes the dopey guy in there getting therapy for
the doctor.
Yeah, and then he goes to see him. But the sequence here, I want to get the visual out of my way and let you run with it. When he walks in with him immediately, he makes him wait, first of all, and that's an old sales tactic. Love to answer your question. Here, have a seat. I'll be right with you in a moment. Of course, he doesn't have to do it, but when he comes in, they're both polite, professionally. They're not in a rush to sit down. You can't make somebody see you like this. You came in unannounced, so you're a little bit rude. And then he asks about the secretary and all that, and he says, oh, basically she left, followed her heart to the UK. And you're like, well, did he kill her? That's my thought. And one thing about the way he dresses, I'm going to point out to you, because this is a well-dressed show for the most part. Lecter does it the classical old school way, which is the way most men were taught. And that's you match your pocket handkerchief up to your shirt, not your fucking tie. Thank you. Anyway, but I love the fact that the smart way to make somebody think like you're professional is to acknowledge something that they've done, like a third person thing. And that's where we see Jack going over and noticing the artwork. But at the same time, did you see what happened there? Hannibal picks up the scalpel, basically saying, I find that this really helps with the points a lot better. And so they kind of go back and forth with this kind of professional, sticking your dick out or whatever. But it's funny because everything here is on Hannibal's timeline, even though he was caught unaware. So he's very easily verbally setting the stage for what's going to happen. And I don't think Crawford knows that, even though Crawford really needs him like he needs Jack. But you see how he's overly nice and professional with him, and not with him, what's his face? The Wimpy boy. I mean, it's so clearly obvious to me watching. This is why I said to you, this is what I'm feeling while I'm watching it. It really stood out to me a lot.
Yeah, no. I also noticed how, like, I don't think Hannibal really takes an interest in Jack himself, but is more interested in Will once he goes ahead and comes in. And it's like,
100%.
You're uncomfortable making eye contact. And these little things that just he's picking up right away.
Some of these lines are tremendous. You know what I'm saying? And he's saying it. I'm like, who says that in television anymore? I mean, they meet and he's pissed because he's like, who, you doing a profile on me? Who you doing or whatever? Because of course it's not supposed to be that way. But when they do these headshots back and forth, to me, it's clear that Hannibal's got a thing for this guy. I mean, he's like, I imagine what you see and learn touches everything else in your mind. Your values and decency are present, yet shocked at your associations, appalled at your own dreams. So it sounds all fancy talk and intellectual shit, but the whole point of what some people call the actual definition of love is the psychological visibility, that you see what the other person is, and despite their faults or whatever like that, you feel a kinship with them. You have some shared value systems or whatever. And it's clear that the way Hannibal's looking at him, that there's this homosexual undertone to the show that a lot of people would talk about back in the day, about how it's supposed to be that way. Bryan Fuller, the director himself, even kind of said, yeah, you can look at it that way. I don't think it's sexual in terms of the act itself, but whether you call that a bromance, for lack of a better term, the relationship between men, I don't have a problem with it at all. I think it's actually pretty strong. But the way he's just staring at Will Graham, I'm like, he's intrigued by him. He meets somebody that he might automatically know, and you feel that right off the bat. It's that old expression that when you meet somebody, you go, man, I felt like I've known them my entire life. It's so well done, not because of the dialogue, but because of the way they're shooting it here. I was really like blown away, like, wow, they're really going to go there.
Yeah,
Do you see that, or agree, or you have a different take?
I didn't get the bromance vibes, really.
You didn't see it in his eyes?
No. I saw it more as a fascination.
Well, that's a part of it. I wouldn't say it's infatuation, but I could see that too.
Which actually, that in a way, it brings me to our next scene.
Mm-hmm.
There's a body that's discovered. A girl, Kacey, in a field in Minnesota. There is a woman. She is naked and impaled on antlers of a deer. And this scene, they go ahead and say, oh, it's the Minnesota Shrike. And you get Will just disgusted at this scene because this isn't the same person. He's like insistent on straight away. This cannot be the same person because this person viewed this girl like a pig. Yeah. Like there is no art to this, and all the other ones, the killer, and it's almost like he's getting offended.
Yes, that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, he's getting offended about what he's seeing here. And what's been taken out of her but a pair of lungs, and that's when we get to see Hannibal preparing himself a meal.
Yeah, and that's why I say these transitions, because right after this, where Will's discussed, like you said, they're out there in the field or whatever, the stage body, he's like, it's totally different. But the detective part of it basically says, okay, if you think about this as old school hunting terms, your prey, well, what do you need? You usually got to have like a kill room, a hunting cabin, that sort of thing to do all that stuff. Because they did find a small piece of shrapnel, I think, in there too earlier, but which would be key if you've ever worked in a machine shop or have done stuff on your own. There's composites and stuff, because we see briefly a girl in a skirt and a guy waving to her or whatever, and that's interspersed with Will saying she's like an only child, and father can't stand the thought of losing her. You could argue that there might be some hidden theme there too, as far as that. And they have this running dialogue about it, comparing it to like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. Remember the golden tickets? You get enough of them, eventually you get the golden ticket, and that's kind of how it is. So they reference a concept that they brought up earlier, even though it sounds kind of goofy, but they're like, no, this definitely leans us more towards it. So they're doing just enough to do the detective stuff here. But obviously when we see Hannibal sitting there preparing the lungs, pressing them down, rolling them out and all that too, and eating, it's kind of funny because you go, well, what is he up to? He's managed to work his way into Jack Crawford, and he's managed to work his way into Will. He's managed to do apparently this killing and eat it himself. And so what's the whole point of that too? I mean, and it's going to lead somewhere, because, Will himself, he's having a rough night, gets a knock on a door, and like a vampire is the way I was looking at it. Hannibal shows up where he's at, and he says, may I come in? And he says it twice. And so he's not apologizing for him, but one of the things that people say in a relationship is that in the animal world, if an animal is developing a relationship with you, and it's not necessarily always male to female, it can be female to male, they bring you a gift or a token, like a raven will do it, or a crow, or a woman that might like you might say, hey, you're kind of skinny, you need to eat, I just brought you some, or would you like some leftovers or something? And what do? They sit down and they have breakfast with sausage. You're like, wait a minute, has that got lung in it? What? An egg?
That's exactly what you're thinking.
But that's the whole point. You don't know, but this is kind of like their first date, right? He's apologizing to him about being professional, and he says, hey, we could socialize like adults, and he goes, God forbid we become friendly. So he's saying that in the present tense. And the exchange here, I think, is worth noting, is as soon as he says that, Will says, I don't find you interesting, and he goes, you will. And that's just like basically calling your bluff or whatever. And so of course he doesn't escalate their relationship anymore. He segues it into Jack Crawford about the killer and everything else going on with it too. So they talk about delving the details, and they mention some things. So he just sort of shows up on his own, and even though he's supposed to be keeping a track to him. There's this great line in there, though, about what he sees in Will, because Will's still curious, because he goes, how do you see me? And he says, to Will, who's asking this, he looks at him for a moment, he goes, the mongoose I want under the house when the snakes slither by. And so to me, mongoose is like a cat with those great reflexes, that if you ever see one in action, they're incredible. So he sees in Will a monster. And so the whole thing about Will here is he a monster, or is he somebody that can just see it and he's a pussy, or he wants to be a monster? Because we have one we know already in Hannibal. So maybe that's why he's looking at me. He's like, hey, I can groom this guy to be just like me if I just get him out of a shell here a little bit. I thought that was very dynamic. And, they then go to this construction site where they did their detective work or whatever like that. And they're looking for records. And, they talk to the one lady and they're going through personnel files. And he says, hey, one guy's got basically like a phone number, but no address or whatever it was. And that's it. And then the shit starts getting real for the end of the episode to set up. Let me hand this off to you right now.
Yes. Hannibal, as they're going ahead and taking some files to the car, and
Oops.
And Hannibal then slips back into the office.
What happens when he's handing the files off to the secretary and Will? He accidentally dumps a lot of them on the ground in front of them. How clumsy of him. Must have been an accident.
Nope. Because he slips back inside, goes to the phone, picks it up with the tissues. That way he doesn't get any fingerprints on it. And he gives a call. And he says, Garrett Jacob Hobbs, we've never met, and I don't suppose we will. Are you listening? They know. And then he hangs up the phone.
Okay, awesome.
They go to the residence that they get for Garrett Jacob Hobbs. The door opens. Who comes out of the door but his wife? Her throat cut.
She's looked better.
I mean, of course, she's dying here. But Will then rushes in after because the wife's already gone. And Garrett is holding his daughter, who she was actually the first to answer the phone. And she fits the profile. She is the golden goose, the one that Garrett Jacob Hobbs really wants because she's about to go away. But now they know, so it doesn't matter. And so he's about to cut her throat. He gets like a little slice in there before she's like, let go. And Will shoots him like, 10 times? And after that, Abigail Hobbs is rushed to the hospital because she's not dead yet. Mm-hmm. Actually, Hannibal stepped in because Will was trying to cover it, but Hannibal used his whole hand to hold the neck. That was something I noticed. Like
he's taking over for his protege here. If you look at it that way, like I say, grooming, and I don't mean that the way a lot of people think of it. I just mean that he's seen this before and he knows how it goes. So he's taking care of his partner, because I think that's how he's thinking of Will a little bit right now. At least he's interested in him, right? Because you're right, he takes over for him to allow him to just kind of stop before he goes too far, because right now he's just really shocked because he's just not that kind of field agent. He's on the spectrum, doesn't know how to handle things, and he's very calm with them, right? But the thing that happens there is he goes up there after he shoots the guy falls down, his eyes are open, and the guy has a look of relief on his face, and he looks right at Will and he says, "You see." So there's that recognition behind the eyes of what's going on. And then you're right, they close off the ambulance and rush off. So a gory way to end the bit of the first episode here too. And the only thing in there is that we get to see Crawford basically getting chewed out by, was it what's her name? Lana Hobbs or whatever like that. Basically saying, "Oh, you said he wouldn't get hurt or like that or get too close." And he's like,
yeah. No, that was
what's her name?
Alana Bloom.
Alana's kind of beautiful in a weird sort of way. But they go to the hospital, and this is all interesting too, because I said Hannibal's taking the lead in the relationship here. The girls there in ER were like that, and Hannibal's there in what I call his granddaddy outfit with the sweater, and the dress shirt there, and he's asleep, but he's holding the girl's hand. And what does Will do? He sits on the other side of it like they're the surrogate kind of type family, whatever like that. And that's basically pretty much the end of the episode. I mean, pretty tremendous.
You know,
Didn't
it's
know how much of this was going to roll into the second episode, but it definitely does. So finish that off and take us on the second episode, please.
yeah, no, I'll take us right in. The main point I was bringing across, because how this episode starts with him imagining the scene inside the bedroom, um, like he imagines himself in the killer's position, jumping on the bed, holding the girl down by her throat, and that's what I took from Hannibal, like reaching across. Because he can use his whole hand to just cover that throat just right, and it was just something that I noticed in his delivery. It wasn't just taking over the scene; it was how he did it.
Yeah, the next one is called, what is it? Amuse-bouche. That's
Yes,
you get
yes.
like an appetizer, which is the aperitif, the first episode. The second one here, I'll just tell you a quick story here. I was in Spain one day with some friends and went to late at night to a restaurant late at night. I don't even remember where. But they would come out and they do a tapas thing where they give you small little servings of stuff and people share and all that. The guy kept coming out and he had on a cracker a tiny piece of seafood like octopus or something like that. And it's literally one bite and you put it in your mouth. That's kind of like the difference between the two. And I remember going, oh, it's a nice appetizer. Like, no, it's not appetizer. It's a octopus. And then he came out like with a cracker and something else. So where I was at in the South, they had like a seafood, it was a seafood type restaurant. So they had like octopus, they had tuna, they had this, that, or whatever. And I thought, oh, that's what the difference is, because I don't know any of that Paris talk stuff or French or whatever, but a lot of cooking analogies and stuff like that in terms come from the quote unquote French school of cooking. But whatever. But that's the one thing that's kind of funny to me is every episode's based off of the food theme. It seems, and we see him professionally sitting down, eating alone and all that, and sometimes with other people, which we'll talk about here. So yeah, I like how this next episode goes directly or is connected really to the first one, how they flow right into each other. They give you a little bit of the, previously on Hannibal. I don't know if they say that, but they just get you right into it. Go ahead.
Yes. So we get to see a cabin in the woods. Not to be confused with
Not that cabin in the woods.
No. But there is this whole room up above where there are antlers, and it's Will and Jack's there, and they're looking over the scene. And this is apparently where Garrett Jacob Hobbs did most of his work. But according to neighbors and stuff, and people in this general area, they often saw Garrett Jacob Hobbs here with his daughter.
Mm-hmm.
And so Jack is now thinking that she played the bait for most of his victims.
That's certainly a possibility, right?
It's a possibility, but Will doesn't buy that, doesn't see that.
What'd you think of the set that they walked into, the small little hunting cabin there with all the antlers and all that from all the deer and stuff he shot over the years?
Oh, it's definitely something that sticks with you. But I prefer seeing how it's shown to us through a crappy little camera and posted on this corny ass site. While there, we see Will noticed somebody was here because he pulls up this long red hair. Mm-hmm. And that's when we get a quick cut to a woman who's posting on a site, the Tattletale. And apparently they have a reporter following them now. Will goes ahead back to Quantico. He gets a standing ovation. And it's quickly brushed over. He doesn't go into too much detail, really. Nothing that I noticed, anyway, as he passes through the events that he went through.
There's a lot in this, I think, actually.
Really? Okay.
Yes. Go ahead.
Alana comes by after to see Will because she wants him to get a psych evaluation because this is the first person that Will's ever killed. That was the reason he went on. He couldn't pull the trigger before, but he shot it 10 times.
Yeah, what I noticed here is I'll touch on one brief scene that happened at the beginning is that, yeah, even though they do the previously and all that too, obviously Hannibal's making things happen. He's instigating stuff, right? So he's trying to move the narrative to his own desires, whatever that may be. So we don't know what that is. we see him actually after all this at the gun range a little bit, kind of firing off all these guns. He does a lousy shot, and we see him kind of hallucinating with the guy that he just shot coming up and all that too. Because you're right, this is significant. When there is a shooting incident, there's always an investigation. There's usually a psych evaluation. Then you're clear. That's pretty standard protocol for most of these police military type operations and stuff. And I get it and all that, but that's what he's thinking of. And then they have the investigation, and it made me think of people that do like a lot of hunting, and we're several generations moved from when a lot of people lived on farms, but it wasn't uncommon for like your son or your daughter to go for it. And I thought to myself, they didn't really say too much about the killer's motives, which may or may not be important. They certainly didn't focus on his wife. The guy doesn't appear to be like a homosexual or be like having affairs on the side or anything. So it doesn't seem like it's a broken family dynamic, even though the wife doesn't really say anything. But we saw, a quick flash or two of the daughter, who seemed like a normal, nice, middle-class girl or whatever, and everything too. And more about her comes up in it as well. But you're like, okay, well, does it matter what his motivation is? I don't know if they were going to get into it. So I didn't know if they should have went there, because again, I'm still more intrigued by, even with their hunting cabin. Well, there's nothing wrong with taking your daughter hunting, but I like how Jack Crawford is basically treating him on, like a little with kid gloves here, basically saying, I'm going to use my soft voice here and say to you, it's possible she could be bait. It's like, no, she wasn't, because he's acting, emotional. So I did like this dynamic, because it's certain scenes like this that I think Laurence Fishburne is so good that allows you basically for him to see that as a character, he goes, no, I really, really need and value Will's expertise, but I just can't have him being a fucking flake. But the bullying thing to get him to that point, well, maybe that's what Jack had to do. And he is the head of the FBI, so he's not fucking around. This is a big deal. So it's an interesting character. And this is where, even if he's not the main character of the show, he's so damn good at the role. I mean, Laurence Fishburne's awesome. He always has been to me or whatever. But I like how they introduced this line of thinking, because that tells us it's not as simple as the ending of the last episode. It means there's going to be more to it. Because to your point, when they have a shot of her that she's still alive by herself and everything, and he finds the hair, we see a woman not dressed, basically out of the shower, and oh, that's her wet hair. It must be hers. Kind of hot. And she's the one that's like uploading stuff or whatever. So somehow we got this reporter on the scene or whatever. And this is, internet early days kind of thing, relatively speaking. But after the opening credits, when everyone's given a standing ovation, the thing I thought about this is again, we're reminded in the same sequence that we met him, he doesn't like making eye contact, whether you call it autistic, Asperger's, whatever part of the spectrum, whatever, all that stuff, and whether you believe in that stuff or not. He's basically telling everybody, yeah, I got fucking lucky. And, here's the clue that helped me find it. It's the resignation letter, and and that's it. So he's basically shitting on his own accomplishments, even though he's up for a commendation. But when he asks everybody, well, what's the clue? Two people raise their hands. He doesn't even bother calling on them. So it's not like he's giving a shit about his job, in my opinion. He's really just using it as his own little therapy room in a way. And they show the picture of the guy. They show the picture of his daughter. It looks like a normal family. I mean, the guy doesn't look unhappy. The girl doesn't look anything. There's nothing weird about the photo. He doesn't even care. He's just sad sacking it. And this is where I'm going, man, it's going to be a long show if he stays this way, but we'll see what happens. But again, the thing that stuck out to me, I don't know if it's editing, but was it Alana Bloom? She's beautiful. She comes out. She's just got the softness to her for him. She's very protective of him. She's like, I'm sorry, but you're going to get ambushed when Jack gets here, wants to do a psyche eval. So it's already going to be either her or Hannibal, which is cool, right? Because we know where that's going to go. But right before she walks up, there's a blonde woman that's, in the classroom, comes up to him like for questions or whatever when everybody's being dismissed, and stands there, and she's looking around. She looks kind of confused, and she's looking him up and down. And it's so obvious because she's sitting there looking at him while she's walking up. And one or two of the other people that were asking questions and raised their hand briefly were like looking like they want to talk to him, then they just walked off. So I don't know if that's pertinent or not, but it was very visible. And I know you have people walking back and forth in backgrounds to make it look like shit's going on. I get that as far as filming it. But this woman there, it just looked deliberate. Like, what was the point of that? So I don't have an answer, but to your point, this is when Jack comes in. So this is why I thought there was a lot going on, because it reemphasized what his character is, what the situation is, and it also is driving the narrative further where he needs to go get a psych eval. And so you could tell she's distraught, but she's not afraid of going toe to toe with Jack, but she does it in a very professional way that's not playful, but it's like, no, you ain't gonna fuck with him. I'm gonna make sure it's great. But then you get Hannibal and Will together, and I figure this is something you want to take a little piece of.
Yes. So this one is because the first thing is this is where he's going for his psych eval, and he's upstairs in the little library that he has in his office. He has
this is awesome man cave, by the way. This is a great evil lair. It's fantastic. It's beautiful, very tasteful.
And we get him going ahead and looking around at the room, and he's like, "Well, I think you're just here to give me an evaluation." But Hannibal right away, he's like, "No, here's your letter saying you're ready to go back to the field. The formalities aside, hopefully we can get to some real conversation." You just rubber stamped me? No, I don't see it as that. And this is where we talk about that theme, like you said at the end. They've taken on a responsibility to Abigail Hobbs, and Will brings up the fact that Jack thinks that she might be involved, and he's like, "Well, it's a possibility."
I find that vulgar.
Okay, but certainly a possibility.
Yeah. But that not only that psychological visibility I meant about here too, it's they're on the same page when it comes to certain things. So now they're establishing they have similar values.
Yeah. Yep. And they're getting slowly more connected. You do see it here.
They make eye contact, and he's not afraid to make eye contact with Hannibal. Just saying.
Talking about gross things, there are bodies found in the woods by 3 boys that have mushrooms just growing out of them.
I thought this was fantastic.
Oh my god, I loved it so much. It was terrible, but great.
The forearm with the bent hand out with the hypo in it, because go ahead. Yeah, it's a great scene.
This guy, like as they go there, the Will is explaining, well, clearly what he's doing is he's putting this needle because he doesn't want them dead. He has them passed out somehow. And he doesn't want them dead straight away. Somehow he's gotten them into a coma, and he keeps them alive just as long as they need to let these mushrooms grow out of them. And there's this one guy that he's standing by, and he starts to feel guilt about Garrett Hobbs a little bit. That's not the way to describe it, but as it's happening, the hand reaches up, and it turns out this one body is still alive. And its face is already peeled off. It's like, give it to me.
Yeah, right before this whole setup and all that, it's cut with Will shooting again at the range or whatever. This time he's not hallucinating, but I go back to Dumb and Dumber. Harry, you're a bad shot, because he can't even hit it. But that's when a sexy Asian lady comes in and basically adjusts the stance. Beverly's really attracted to him as well. So like I say, he doesn't know he's got all these women, going crazy for him in a professional. Women don't touch you accidentally the way she's touching him. And it's not like she's rubbing his nipples. She's professionally saying, no, put your hands this way. We're going to do the stance here. Drop your shoulder down because you're tense and all that. So this is not unintentional. It's just, you've got women that might be helping craft a monster here too, is the way I'm thinking of it, whether intentional or not. So I don't know. I put a lot of stuff into it because right now he could care less. It's like he's asexual. I just don't understand. It doesn't give him a glance or anything. And I go, he's obviously a competent guy, but it's just a quick scene, but it's just to kind of remind you of this other female that's involved. So we got 3 women. We've got the 2 FBI people, and we've got the daughter that's in the emergency room here. But yeah, this whole thing that happens out in the field, these 3 guys go through, they talk about a ventilation system, how he kept them alive, but was feeding them basically like a dextrose, which is a simple sugar solution. Asian ladies there too, and all that. So I don't know if that's more pertinent, but you see the red-haired one there lying to one of the guys there, basically saying, "Oh, I'm just one of the moms. Would you be able to help me kind of answer some questions? Because they're gonna, they did a good thing and blah blah." And she's being nice to the guy, softening up to him. I wouldn't say she's flirting with him, but she knows what she's doing. She's smart. And all I remember is from movies that you're not aware of what happens to this character later, but I don't know what the TV show is going to do. So I'm leaving that alone for right now. But obviously you're like, oh, you bitch, you worked your way into here too, because obviously she's working to get some information. Will gets the he gets the psychic intervention there a little bit, kind of thinking how things are going through, because we always see basically him going through the scene. This is my design, all that stuff too. But yeah, when the last one's alive and starts moving here, I just started laughing because like, this doesn't look like an expensive TV show as far as like, oh, that looks expensive, but it's very well shot. Like that is just a great effect or whatever. But it gives us an excuse for Hannibal and Will to kind of meet again, where he's basically saying, hey, something happened. Here's what happened. So he's coming to him now because now Will needs Hannibal. So what do you think of that scene?
And no, I liked it a lot, because at this point they go ahead and they're discussing, and who is outside of the office though, but our reporter.
Yep.
She's out there, and she set up an appointment. She comes in, and Hannibal entertains her for 1 second, and then is like, okay, you're Freddie Lowndes, aren't you? And makes her go ahead and like, I need your bag. And he's not actually saying anything threatening until, I mean, he does say,
he's not blinking the entire time if you go back and watch this.
Yeah, but he goes ahead and he makes her delete the conversation, because she wasn't there for herself. She was there to record the conversation that they were having. Though I don't know how. Like, she wasn't really by the door, but I don't know.
Well, she lies to him, and he goes, "You've been terribly rude, Miss Lowndes. What are we going to do with you?" And then that's when they cut to him pouring like a red sauce over like some loin, and he's entertaining Jack Crawford.
Yeah.
So I'm like, oh, is he feeding stuff to Crawford now? What's going on? Because it looks like real pork to me. It doesn't look like lung or anything that has been whatever. But they have a nice little conversation where he goes, well, I think you think Will's a teacup and you don't want him to be. So he just says, yeah, I think Will knows what's going on in his head and he doesn't want therapy or whatever. So they have this analogy about broken ponies in a stable and everything. And it's a nice little back and forth verbally, honestly, between two people. And here's the thing. This is the only time we see Jack Crawford kind of relax and letting down his professional demeanor, where he's not rude, he's civil, he's polite, he still wants something, and he's good at it. He does care about Will a little bit, but Hannibal is making him his friend.
Yeah.
And he says that, well, I've already had my psych evaluation, Hannibal. He's like, well, you've already mentioned your mother, or whatever. And then they just have some wine and he breaks it down. So he's being disarming. So that's why this guy is so fucking good at it. And the way he holds the wine glass, I just want to go off on this as we're getting towards the end of the episode here. You hold a wine glass at the bottom, usually with your 2 fingers or 3. You hold it up the light to see the diffraction through it. You swirl it to see how much of it sticks on the sides, because how much of it seems to in the color. They call that legs. Look through it. Usually you sniff it and keep your mouth open, because your mouth takes in a certain amount of smelling that your nose can't, and that's why you almost hear people inhale both at the same time and sip it. So even his eating, he's using the old school continental style where the fork tongs are down as he cuts and brings it up to himself. He doesn't lean forward, and elbows are not out and all that. So very classically well trained, and they're relaxing, having a pleasant dinner and conversation with no rush. That's one of the things I always pop about it here too. But there's a quick scene in there with the tech guys about alcohol and sugars and how they were all diabetics and everything too. Then we see this nondescript but actually very hot blonde woman putting in a prescription in for insulin, and we see this middle-aged white guy, because it's always middle-aged white guys generally, it really is, let's be honest, switching out an insulin for a different batch. And a great line in here when he looks at it, he goes, I just need you to fill out this form. She goes,
is this
okay.
address?
Exactly, because you're like, okay, this is the fucker. This is a great way to do this episode where we're almost done and we don't even have to see a lot about it, because this girl's got a skirt on and everything, and he's doing it to a couple people, and then they get a raid on the place too. And Will's like, is his car still here? And he takes the baton and he goes through it. And we're like, well, okay, it's at night. The guy's run. What is he doing? Well, he's opening up the trunk because they find her body in it already buried, because he was getting ready to transport her as the next victim. A very quick, efficient way of having a second killer in here, I think. But I don't know if there's much more to add to that.
The next thing is quick too. Like, we get the reporter Freddie, like,
Freddie Lowndes,
doors knocked in, and then the FBI comes in. They lock her up with zip ties, and they're like, "Hey, if you write again about Will, we're going to have problems. You're going ahead and you're messing with crime scenes. We can get you. So stop." And then after that, she goes downstairs to see that the police officer that she got in trouble is there. And he's like, "Well, you got me suspended and everything." That's when the middle-aged white guy that escaped comes up, shoots the guy in the head. And you think something's going to happen to her. No, he just wants information from her. He doesn't use her at all. He just says, "Oh, well, he wants this guy, Will, he sees something in him that he connects to, and he just wants to connect to Abigail. I can help that because the mycelium, it reacts whenever you walk into the room."
It's like a hive mind kind of thing.
You know what? I really wish that the dish had something to do with mushrooms, though, don't you?
Yeah, and I agree with you. I don't know if that'll happen or not in the future. We'll see. The thing about all this too is that this is cut between a scene of him at the hospital checking on the girl, and Alana's there too, just with soft eyes at him. He's like, "Well, I just liked hearing your voice as you read the story to her," or whatever. So obviously this is very maternal kind of thing that's going on between them. It's not there, but yeah, this whole not exaggeration, but this whole incitement going on here where Freddie seems shocked. I go, I know Freddie's a shitty tabloid reporter, but she seems generally stunned that that's going on. And she's like, "Well, hey, I can get you work. I know private people in security, da. So she almost seems like, yeah, I kind of went overboard. Now I guess I kind of realized it. But basically gets Jack calls Will and says, "Where you at?" He's like, "I'm in the hospital." And he's like, he knows he's going for it at the hospital because he's going to take her from it. And so basically we have the same thing again, where he ends up tracking the guy down after he goes on disguise. He's wheeling the body out. He wings him. And he says all this kind of stuff or whatever. And he's just ends up having the last conversation here with Hannibal about saying, "I felt really good to shoot the first one. And I don't know, it was beautiful in its own way," sort of thing. And so we get a lot more conversation between them. And he says, "I liked killing Hobbs." And Hannibal's sitting there treating him basically whatever. But this is where, he goes, killing must feel good to God too, as well, because he does it all the time. And, are we not creating his own image? So he's basically telling me, it's okay, I accept you for what you are. This is what I mean by him grooming him. And grooming is the wrong word, but, letting him get to where he needs to be so they can have potentially a relationship together or whatever. So I don't know. I mean, it pretty much ends on that. I just think these two episodes are great. I think the first one, in my opinion, is one of the best first episodes of a TV show to get drawn in that I've ever seen in my life. Big fan of The Prisoner TV show. Some episodes didn't need to be made, but you and I covered that years ago. Twin Peaks is the only one I think is better. The very first one is like, holy shit. It's incredible. It's phenomenal. Final thoughts on this episode, these first two in general?
Great. I'm very glad that we've started this one. After finishing Columbo, I wasn't sure what we were going to go into, and I'm glad that you thought of this suggestion.
I'm sure that you'll be back to it or whatever. Fine Young Cannibals. Yeah, she drives me crazy. Ha ha ha, like no one else. That was a hit. I admit that. Yeah, this is great. I'm looking forward to covering episodes 3 and 4 with you next week here on the Extreme Movie Show. So I want to thank you for joining tonight. I want to thank Jim and RDV and everybody else showing up tonight. We had about 10 people. That's really cool. We appreciate everybody retweeting it out. And everybody knows the show is going back there. Eventually, we'll get back to Forever Night. We'll get back to Columbo. We'll get back to all the other things here on the Extreme Movie Show. Good night now.
Thanks for joining us for dinner.